Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inshallah, we begin the night with a short recitation from the Quran, after which we will commence the talk, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي فمن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين إله العالمين وبه نستعين ونصلي ونسلم على خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. رب يسر ولا تعسر وتمم بالخير وبك نستعين. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for having gathered us here. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to surround us with the malaika and to cause His mercy and His sakinah to descend upon us and to raise us with the anbiya alayhimus salatu wassalam and those whom He has mentioned with them. Ameen. The words that we speak are very, very powerful. How many children have become orphans because of a word that was spoken? How many women have become widowed because of a word that was spoken? Families torn apart completely because of something that a man said. Partnerships dissolved and ended after years and years of building that partnership. You find it comes to an end. Friendships completely gone. Years and years of developing that friendship, you find 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. A person knows another man, and all of a sudden that friendship is gone overnight. Why? Because one of them said something to the other. How many of us know of examples of this in our lives? Our tongues are literally a serpent if we don't harness them in. And if we don't harness what comes out of our mouths, you will find that you will cause the deepest of cuts in a human being's heart with the words that you speak. And this is why the Arab poet says, جراحات السنان لها التيام. The cutting of the swords, there is a healing of that wound that will come about. So you will cut the person, yes, and there will be a healing at the end of it, and that wound will go away. وَلَا يَلْتَامُ مَا جَرَحَ اللِّسَانُ, and it does not heal that which the tongue cuts. When you cut a person with your tongue up, then wallahi that person in most cases will not forget. They may forgive. They may decide to let it go, but they will not forget. Because your tongue is something that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir, the one who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا. So let him say a good word, or لِيَصْمُتْ, or let him keep completely quiet. Why? Because what comes from your mouth can be very dangerous, not only to those who are others, but to you as well. You can harm yourself with this little piece of flesh that wags about in your mouth. And if you are not careful of what comes, how it moves, and what is the result of this wagging, then you will cause and create a lot of enemies in your life. A lot of enemies in your life. Because why? You don't care what you say. Whatever comes to your mind, it comes out into your speech. Whatever is in your heart, it comes out into your speech. So whatever is hidden within the heart sometimes is put by shaitan. Remember that shaitan is the one who whispers. He puts thoughts into your mind. He says certain things to you. Sometimes he will tell you something bad about another human being. He will tell you something bad about your Sheikh. He will tell you something bad about your mother, about your father, about the people around you, about your fellow students. And all of a sudden you find yourself just speaking it out. Think before you ink. Think before you ink. And they mention this with regards to writing, but it is also used with regards to your speech. Before you say something, think, what will the impact of my words be on the next man? How will it affect him? What will the impact of my words be on myself in the first place? Because if I say something that can be detrimental to myself, then perhaps that is the end. You know, you can say something that can end your life. You can say something that can end your life completely. You commit treason with your mouth and perhaps you will be executed in certain countries. So it is very dangerous for us to just talk without thinking. Let us think before we ink. And this is why you find that the words generally have weight. And obviously, the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they have the most weight. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to create, إِنَّمَا أَمْرُهُ إِذَا أَرَادَ شَيْئًا أَن يَقُولَ لَهُ كُن فَيَكُونُ. Indeed, His matter is when He wants something to happen, He just says, kun. فَكَانْ فَيَكُونْ. So it is. This is the weight of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He only needs to say kun. He doesn't even need to say that kun, but He made it upon Himself such that He says that kun. So the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates. The word of Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal has a weight to itself. When you look at the hellfire, and the extremity of it, the heat of it, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam tells us that there are 70 parts of the hellfire. And of that fire you find one part is being used in this dunya. You know the fire that we see? You know the fire that we see? That is one part of the fire of Jahannam, of 70 parts of the fire of Jahannam. If we are to put our hands into the fire in this world, we know very well that within no time you will snatch your hand away. You can't bear it. Jahannam is 70 times more severe than that. Jahannam is 70 times more severe than that. We know very well that if someone had to throw a stone, it will take so long, years and years and years and years before it reaches the bottom. The Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were sitting with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam one day, and they heard a thud. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam told them, do you know what that thud is? Do you know what that thud is? This is a stone that was thrown into Jahannam 70 to 100 years ago. As far as I'm sure, it was 70 years ago the stone was thrown into Jahannam. And today it has reached the bottom. That is how deep Jahannam is. But do you know what the power of a word is? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, ittaqun nar. Fear that huge fire, that bad, evil fire. Fear it. وَلَوْ بِشِقِّ تَمْرَةٍ. Even if it is with half a date. But the hadith doesn't end there. The hadith doesn't end there. So half a date, you give in sadaqah, you can be protected from that fire. But do you know what the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says? فَإِن لَمْ تَسْتَطِعْ. And if you are not able to do this, فَبِكَلِمَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ. With a good word, protect yourself from that huge fire that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. He kindled it, and it took so long to kindle, to the extent that Jahannam complained, Inna ba'di akala ba'da. Some parts of me has eaten other parts of me. So it complained to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until حَتَّى أَذِنَ لَهَا نَفَسٌ فِي الصَّيْفِ وَنَفَسٌ فِي الشِّتَاءِ. Until He gave it a breath in the winter and a breath in the summer. So that is the worst that you find of the winter and the worst that you find of the summer in this dunya. When Jahannam is taking a breath, then you find very cold weather. And when Jahannam is taking a breath in the summer, you find very hot weather. All of that, you can protect yourself from that torment, that punishment, that harm. With what? بِكَلِمَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ. With a good word. Our words are powerful. What we say is powerful. And we need to think of the consequences of what we say before we say it. It is very important for us to realize this. Today the ummah is suffering largely for the reason that we don't guard our mouths. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed so many teeth in front of our tongues in order for us to guard that tongue. Be careful. Bite your tongue and hold it back if you have to, rather than speaking something that will harm another person. You find scholars and students of knowledge, and this is very important for you here. This is very important for you here. Don't go out there and talk about another man. Don't talk about another woman. Wallahi, this is not the time in the ummah for us to go out and start pointing and labeling and telling. As long as they utter the shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Wallahi, they are your brothers and sisters in Islam. They are your brothers and sisters in Islam. And take them as such so long as they have not left the fold of Islam. Don't fight them, don't harm them, don't say bad against them. Yes, you may want to show the people that what the other group is doing, they are mistaken in it. How do you do it? How do you do it? A very wise man once told me. He says, you see a jagged line. If I were to come and draw a jagged line on this board, and I came and I tried for a long time to tell you, hey, this line is jagged, you see, because it's going to the right, then it's going to the left, then it's going to the right again. Many people will tell me, no, I don't agree with you. It's straight. It's straight. I see it as straight. There's nothing wrong. Because it's going straight this way, straight that way, it's straight. That's my interpretation of straight. But you want to show him that it's a jagged line, what is the easiest way to do so? Go and draw a straight line next to that jagged line. Go and draw a straight line next to the jagged line. Show him this is the straight line. You don't even need to talk about the jagged one. He will automatically understand this one is jagged, that one is straight. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam came with the dawah first in Mecca, when he came down from the mountain and he began to give the da'wah, what did he do? He did not begin by saying, don't worship Al-Lat, don't worship Al-Uzza, don't worship Manat. He says, Man qala la ilaha illallah dakhal al-Jannah. The one who says la ilaha illallah, he will enter Jannah. Right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam did not come to start telling them, hey, you see, later on, yes, after some time he began to explain to them, you see these idols, they don't benefit, they don't harm, but initially the first message was what? If I were to warn you of a punishment that was coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would you believe me? And he began to tell them in this manner. He approached them with hikmah and with wisdom. And this is why you find in our approach to the non-Muslims and the Muslims at large, we should have a lot of hikmah in what we do. Today, wallahi, a lot of the problems in the ummah are caused by people who are ignorant and they think they know. They are ignorant and they think they know, so they speak and they use their tongues like swords to cut each other. Wallahi, if you feel and you have an urge to cut another human being with your tongue, to destroy him, to etch his heart with something, then know that it is your own shahwa, it is your own desire, and it is your own hawa that is telling you to do that. It is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is not His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He sallallahu alayhi wasallam came, he drew a straight line, people knew exactly what was jagged, and whoever had a good heart, they accepted the message. You see? This was the methodology of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Entrance into Jannah is also dependent on something, on words that we utter. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. I'm sure we are all familiar with the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam in which he discusses the card. The card. It's known as hadithul bitaqa. The hadith of the card. A man will come on the day of Qiyamah and he will be brought forth before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then 99 scrolls of this man will be brought forth, and every single scroll will be as far as your eye can see. As far as your eye can see. One scroll. There will be 99 of these scrolls. He will come on the day of Qiyamah and all of these scrolls will be full of bad deeds, evil deeds. So he will say to himself, Halaktu, I've been destroyed, there's no hope for me here. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him, what do you think will happen? Are there any good deeds that you have? He says, no, I can't remember any good deeds. There's nothing that I have. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell him, Inna laka indana hasana. You have one good deed with us. You have one good deed with us. So he will begin to think to himself that, I've got 99 scrolls, equivalent. Each scroll you can see until your eyesight ends. And they are all full of evil and bad. And I have one hasana, one good deed, and that is going to be placed on the right scale of deeds. So I am destroyed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell the angels that make sure that come and weigh his deeds. And you find that these scrolls, all of the 99 will be placed upon the left hand side. And then that one little card will be placed on the right hand side. And all of these 99 scrolls will be outweighed by that one card. Do you know what will be written on that card? Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. In fact, as far as I'm sure, the hadith mentions La ilaha illallah will be mentioned on that card. This means that this man did not say, he did not do anything good. He did not say anything good from the day he accepted Islam until the day that he died. He did not do or say anything good whatsoever. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him based on the weight of that word, La ilaha illallah. This is the weight of our words that we utter. You enter into Islam and you are saved from a huge fire, entered into Al-Jinan because of a word that you uttered. This is the weight of our words. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks. And He spoke to Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam. He spoke to Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam certain words that were then brought down to Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam received these words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke. These are the words that we call the Quran today. We call them the Quran. So these words have so much weight that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself spoke them. And they were so heavy that when Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam used to receive wahi directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is said that one of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, his foot or his leg was under the leg of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. He was sitting next to him, so his leg happened to be under the leg of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the weight that he felt was overcoming when the wahi began to come on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Aisha radiyallahu anha says that in a wintry cold night, I would see the forehead of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam sweating from the wahi that he was receiving. His camel, he was once sitting on it when he received wahi, and it literally put its neck onto the ground. It couldn't take this. It was too much for it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَوْ أَنزَلْنَا هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ عَلَى جَبَلٍ لَرَأَيْتَهُ خَاشِعًا. If we were to reveal this Quran on a mountain, you would have seen it humbled. مُتَصَدِّعًا مِّنْ خَشْيَةِ اللَّهِ. It would have blown up into smithereens from the khashiyah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the weight of the words that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke. So words have so much weight. Words mean a lot. Don't think of it as nothing. You wake up and you find that someone from your family, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us, but it happens, you wake up and you find out someone has passed away. You go and you condole the person. You go and give them condolences. Hey brother, hey sister, don't worry, have sabr, have patience. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you a great reward in return. How do you do this? Using words. When a child is born, you congratulate the mother and the father. You congratulate the mother and the father on the joy and the happiness that they feel. How is this done? With your words. You speak to them, you tell them, MashaAllah, we are so happy to see that you have a child. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this child. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this child a reason of your entry into Jannah, so they become happy. Your words have an effect on their heart. Your words affect the way they feel. And do you know what? People forget what you do for them. You can give a man $1 million. Okay, $1 million is a bit high. $1 million is a bit high. But say you gave a man a lot of money. There will come a time perhaps where he will have a lot more and he will forget what you gave him. He will forget what you did for him. You can help him out in dire need. And one day when you meet him, he will say, oh, Salaam alaikum brother, what is your name? He will forget you. But the way that you treat a person, he will never forget. He will never forget. You harm a person, you hurt his feelings, he will remember forever that this man hurt me. This man harmed me. Once your words come out of your mouth, you are a prisoner of your words. Your words have imprisoned you. But as long as you have not spoken those words, then you have a chance to redeem yourself. You have the chance to protect yourself. You have the chance to do that which is right. So make sure that you are careful of what you say and what you do. Now, when it comes to dealing with a tyrant, when it comes to dealing with an oppressor, when it comes to dealing with someone who is really harsh with you, they harm you, they do all sorts of things to you. We have an example from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. And do you know what he says? Fir'aun was a tyrant. We all know this. He had killed so many people from amongst his own people that he ruled over. He had made so many of them slaves. He did so many different wrongdoings, and he had oppressed so many people, done so many bad things. He chased Musa alayhi salatu wasalam out of the city. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he is telling Musa alayhi salatu wasalam to go and speak to Fir'aun, he is telling Musa and Harun, go and speak to Fir'aun. And he tells him, فَقُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيِّنًا. So tell him a soft word. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. Perhaps he will remember, or he will have a bit of God consciousness. If this is the manner in which you are to treat Fir'aun, then what about your brother? What about your sister? What about your classmate? What about your ustad? You should be treating them in the best of manner. And remember that don't speak bad to them, because Fir'aun, you are supposed to speak to him very quietly. That is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Remember, وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. It is not for us to shove and force things down the throat of others. It is for us to pass on the message. And this was the duty of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Ya ayyuha rasul, O messenger, بَلِّغْ مَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ مِنْ رَبِّكَ. Pass on that which was sent down to you from your Rabb. وَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ. And if you do not do that, فَمَا بَلَّغْتَ رِسَالَتَهُ. But you would have not conveyed the message. But it was not for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and it is not for us to shove the deen down the throats of others. For us is to give them a good word, to explain to them, to call them, such that they come closer to Islam. Such that they come closer to Islam. But we are not to go out and shove the deen down their throats. Some of us think that it is our duty to go there and make sure they believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So as a result, we will force them to listen to what we have to say, and we will tell them you will be punished, and this is what will happen to you, and that is what will happen to you. You are not required to do this. You are required to pass on the message, and with good words. ud'u ila sabili rabbika. Call to the way of your Rabb bil hikmati, with wisdom, wal maw'izati al hasanah, and with a good advice. Pass on the message of Islam with good advice. The message of Islam is beautiful, it is amazing. It is the most beautiful message that you can ever find. But imagine you take this beautiful message that is wrapped up. Imagine you have a present that is beautifully wrapped up, amazingly wrapped up. The contents are stunning. You can't get better than that. And you take it, you go to the person and you shove it in his face. Shove it in his face. What is going to happen? He will give you one clap. What's wrong with you? Why did you do that? Hey, present it nicely. And you find the person becomes happy. Hey, let me see what is inside. Present Islam in a manner as though you are a salesman. And a brother recently just told me this. He says, we are all salesmen. Wallahi, we are selling a product, and our product is Islam. And if you realize and understand this, you will go out there and say it in such a beautiful manner that they will want to accept. Have you ever seen a salesman who comes to your door? Well, in America it happens. They come to the door and they knock on the door. It used to happen. I don't know if it happens any longer. And they say, hey brother, I've got this. And people don't want to listen to them. People don't want to hear what they have to say, but the first few words that they utter are so beautiful, so tantalizing that someone wants to listen to more. And if you bring Islam and portray it in this manner, imagine what people will want to hear. Islam is like water. And I heard this from a scholar in Medina. He says Islam is like water. Nobody refuses water. You give him a glass of water, he is thirsty, and we are all thirsty for the religion. We all want it. We all need it in our lives. Those who don't have it, they don't realize that they need it, but they need it. So if you are to go to such a person who is thirsty, he is parched, his throat is dry, he needs to drink something. Imagine it is at iftar time, you need to drink something, and you give him water, he will drink it. He will love it. You put it forth and he will love it. But if you are to throw that water into his face, then take a look at what will happen. I don't even need to tell you what will happen. You know very well what will take place after that. So always try and portray Islam and present Islam in the most beautiful manner, and you will find Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you barakah in your da'wah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you barakah to the extent that the people will accept from you. They will listen to you. They will want to listen to you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that when you are doing the right thing, when you are doing it in the right manner, إِذَا أَحَبَّ اللَّهُ الْعَبْدَ نَادَى جِبْرِيلٌ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves a servant, He calls out to Jibreel, إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا فَأَحِبَّهُ. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so, so love him. فَيُنَادِي جِبْرِيل فَيُحِبُّهُ جِبْرِيل وَيُنَادِي فِي أَهْلِ السَّمَاءِ. So Jibreel loves him, and then he calls out in the people, amongst the people of the sky, who are the angels. إِنَّ اللَّهَ تَعَالَى يُحِبُّ فُلَانًا. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves so and so. Imagine your name being mentioned there. فَأَحِبُّوهُ. So love him. فَيُحِبُّهُ أَهْلُ السَّمَاءِ. So the people of the heavens love that person. ثُمَّ يُوضَعُ لَهُ الْقَبُولُ فِي الْأَرْضِ. And then acceptance will be written for that man on earth. You find that he goes and he gives da'wah to a certain person. He talks to another person. He does it in such a manner they accept. They love him. They want to be with him. They want to enjoy his company. They want to listen to him again and again. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about this in Surah Maryam, in which He says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Indeed, those who have believed in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they have done good deeds, سَيَجْعَلُ لَهُمُ الرَّحْمَنُ وُدًّا. Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will soon place for them a love within the hearts of the people who love the deen. A love within the hearts of the people who revere Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who respect Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who respect His limits. This is the love that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will place within His heart. There was a woman at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And this woman would perform a lot of salah, she would give a lot of zakah, she would go for hajj, she would do the umrah. She did a lot of good deeds. She did a lot of good deeds. So the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, they came and they explained to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, this woman, she does such and such a good deed, she does such and such a good deed. She's a very good woman except for one thing. She harms her neighbors. She speaks bad about her neighbors. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he did not waste time. His answer was very short and concise. He literally said within 3 words, Hiya fin nar. She is in the fire. She is in the fire. All your salah, all your zakah, all the hajj, what happened to it? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, of no benefit. Of no benefit. Why? Because she harms her neighbors by speaking bad about them, by saying something bad about them. She harms them, so she is in the fire. And she will be punished for that. So our tongues mean a lot. And our tongues hold, our words hold a lot of weight. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions a man. And he actually starts by telling the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, أَتَدْرُونَ مَنِ الْمُفْلِسِ. Do you know who is a bankrupt person? So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they had an understanding of who a bankrupt person was from amongst them. They said, Man la yakun indahu dirham wala dinar. The one who has no dirham, he has no dinar. He has no dirham, he has no dinar. And in one narration, wala mata', and he has no merchandise, no goods to even take and sell them in the marketplace, and he gets some capital that he can restart with. He has nothing, he is bankrupt. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam began to explain to them what a true muflis is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A true bankrupt person with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Al-muflis man ya'ti yawm al-qiyamah wa indahu hasanat كأمثال الجبال. A muflis is the one who comes on the day of Qiyamah and he has good deeds equivalent to the mountains. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum are looking and saying, hey, what kind of a bankrupt person is this? He will come and he will have a mountain full of good deeds. How? So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam continues, وَقَدْ شَتَمَ هَذَا, and he would have sworn this person, وَقَذَفَ هَذَا, and he would have accused this person, وَأَكَلَ مَالَ هَذَا, and he ate the wealth of this person, وَسَفَكَ دَمَ هَذَا, and he spilled the blood of this person. فَيُعْطَى هَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ وَهَذَا مِنْ حَسَنَاتِهِ. So the one whom he swore and the one whom he accused and he said bad with his words to, he will be given from his good deeds, and that one will be given from his good deeds. Imagine how dangerous this is, that the words that you spoke will deplete your mountain until those فَإِنْ فَنِيَتْ حَسَنَاتُهُ, until those deeds are completely finished. أُخِذَ مِنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِ ثُمَّ طُرِحَ عَلَيْهِ. أُخِذَ مِنْ سَيِّئَاتِهِمْ ثُمَّ طُرِحَ عَلَيْهِ. It will be taken from his evil and his bad deeds, and it will be placed in their scale of, in his scale of bad deeds. So their bad deeds will now be taken and placed on the man whom they swore, or on the man whom they will be placed on the man who was swearing and who was accusing others of wrongdoing. They will be placed on him, and he will have to bear the weight of this on the day of Qiyamah. So never swear a person, never say bad, and this is why Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam says, لَيْسَ الْمُؤْمِنُ بِالطَّعَانِ. A mu'min is not a person who accuses, وَلَا اللَّعَانِ, and he is not a person who curses all the time. He doesn't curse. وَلَا الْفَاحِشِ, and he is not immoral in his speech. وَلَا الْبَذِيء, and he is not badhi. I cannot remember exactly what badhi means, so I will not translate it. وَلَا الْبَذِيء, he is not badhi. So this is the attitude of a believer, because he knows before he speaks the words that he speaks, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows what he is going to speak. When it is in his heart and it is in his mind, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows of it before he even speaks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَمْ تَرَ كَيْفَ ضَرَبَ اللَّهُ مَثَلًا كَلِمَةً طَيِّبَةً. Do you not see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the example of a good word? كَمَثَلِ شَجَرَةٍ طَيِّبَةٍ أَصْلُهَا ثَابِتٌ وَفَرْعُهَا فِي السَّمَاءِ. It is like the example of a tree, a good tree, that its roots are in the ground. Its roots are in the ground and the branches come out. The branches come out and they are spreading out. أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. It gives its fruit at all times with the permission of its Rabb. This is the example of your shahada. When you take it and you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the manner that you are to believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will find that the shahada will give you fruit, and the tree are your good deeds. They will come out and you will perform so many good deeds, and those good deeds will have fruit that will then have seeds and give birth literally to new and more trees which will produce more fruit, and so on and so forth. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَثَلُ كَلِمَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ, and the example of an evil word. كَمَثَلِ شَجَرَةٍ خَبِيثَةٍ. It is like the example of an evil tree, a bad tree. There are no evil trees, but bad trees. كمثل شجرة خبيثة اجتثت من فوق الأرض. It was uprooted from on top of the earth. ما لها من قرار. It has no stability. Have you ever seen a tree whose roots are showing? It is literally pulled out from its roots and the roots are on top of the ground. What happens to this tree? The tree wilts away, it becomes small, it becomes shriveled, and it dies. You have an evil word, you have said something bad, you will gain nothing from it. In fact, you will come on the day of Qiyamah and that will be a bad deed in your scale. So utter that which is good. Say that which is good, and if you have nothing good to say, then keep quiet. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. The one who believes in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the last day, let him say that which is good or let him remain silent. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to do this, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to practice upon what has been said. Ameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Brother Nashrik and Sister Sarah will be